This is a test.
You
It's
we
conducting a
want
test
deal
of
with
the
it.
emergency
Are you just
broadcast
gonna
system.
sit there and take it? That last caller just made me drive off. Is this done or what every day?
DrivetimeUGC.
Let's not start that mental breakdown again.
It's an experiment.
Well, with the foundry, we can probably agree on what the biggest bugs are right now.
Information or instruction. This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Welcome to DrivetimeUGC. This is the bi-weekly filler podcast for when PrimetimeUGC isn't available. So I'm Cerberus Films, and joining me tonight, and hopefully for the rest of these fortnightly periods, are CaptPDennis.
Hello.
Kirkfat.
Hello, Stoke community.
And Castmodean.
At least until Paul fires me.
Doesn't he fire you like every other week? At the moment.
No,
once.
sometimes he just kills me with his mind.
Oh, that's true. Fair enough. Wait, that was an alternate universe, though, wasn't it? Or mirror universe, so it doesn't count.
Let's not start that mental breakdown again.
This is basically a podcast. We came up with the idea to fill in the odd week where Primetime, the show, the video podcast, isn't on. So yeah, this is audio. We're trying something new. We're here, we're going to talk to you guys for some time. We don't know how long. We don't know what we're doing.
It's an experiment.
Okay, so who should we start with? We have a number of topics we want to talk about, and we'll see where it goes from there. Shall we start with Paul?
Sure, why not? I have
We'll
one
go down a
topic
list
to discuss, and it's a pretty big topic. So, we discuss about getting new things in the foundry. We talk about features that we need. I think before we can have anything, we just need everything to work correctly. And right now, hardly anything is working correctly.
Yeah.
And let's face it, there are bugs everywhere, and not just Foundry, in the whole of the game. I mean, we have this special event running now where we go to Ryza and we have these nice outfits that we collect 600 favors for, and then you buy them, and if you're a Klingon, you can't wear them, because you can't change your outfit if you're a Klingon. I mean...
Is that why they smell so much?
Maybe so. But you think that these things need to be urgently addressed, but it doesn't seem so.
Beachwear is not honorable.
No, I guess not. But if you're a Romulan and you want to wear that stuff you worked to buy, and you can't,
Well, with the foundry, we can probably agree on what the biggest bugs are right now.
Well, that's unknown. It's an unknown reason.
Yes.
But Star Trek is about the unknown. The search for the unknown.
Well, I found the unknown.
bug.
It is an unknown reason, and it continually locks me out of a mission. It takes me less time to do a STF than to actually log into a project.
Yeah, it usually takes me about 5 times, then I get in. I can sort of deal with that. The thing that I can't deal with is the loading screens. My loading screens are 4 to 5 minutes long, and considering I typically go in and out of the foundry maybe 10 times an object, that makes it where I'll spend all night just putting 5 things in the foundry, and then I just give up and leave out of disgust.
Yeah, I mean, just trying to make prime time. I just can't do it. It's just too much.
Which is why we're doing this, kind of. I wanted to talk a bit about the long load screen times. Now, I am right in saying that it only came up since Legacy of Romulus?
Correct.
Because someone said to me the other day that they'd experienced it before, but I don't remember. I was in the Foundry fairly recently before Legacy of Romulus, and I don't remember seeing any of the long load times.
No, I released a brand new mission the day before it came online. And it was fine.
And we've also had periods where actually the long load times have been completely gone.
Yeah, and it's really strange because it can happen during prime gaming time where it doesn't seem to be connected with how many people are playing STO. It's just either the load screen works or it doesn't.
If I was to hazard a guess to get all technical and babbly. It's probably a load balancing issue on the back end, whereas it's giving it lesser priority on the network. Trouble is that it seems to always be getting lesser priority, just like fixing it.
Now, you're talking about the load times of previewing a map, or are you talking about loading into the Foundry itself?
Without getting into heavy technobabble, there are processes in servers that are used to basically decide what has priority on the network. Yeah. And I'm sure that the process and transfer times for our portion are what's being given lower priority.
Which is especially weird if... Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because even Frost has acknowledged that it's a network engineer's issue, which means that it's definitely something in the back end.
Yeah. It's really very odd that it would, like Kirkfat was saying, that it happens at all times of the day. Like, I'll log in at 12, sort of midday my time, and I think we can all probably quite easily say there's no one else online at that point. No one else in the US isn't on at that point. Germany's probably all in work. Everywhere is probably sleeping or working, apart from the UK and anyone sitting in a boat in the Atlantic. And yet we're still getting long load times, and we're getting the load failing for getting into the Foundry itself.
Well, I can tell you this, that every established mission that I have, I would not be able to access. I'd get knocked out for an unknown reason. But when I make a new mission, I seem to be able to get in without a problem.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And
if you do a new project...
I have a new project, and I still get kicked from it. I think
it
performs...
Is that once
better.
you've saved it and you're going back into it? Or?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The first time, I had no issue. But if I try to get back into it now, I'm sure I'm going to experience the same thing. Once it's established.
I also thought maybe it had something to do with pathing and BOF pathing, because, I mean, remember before Legacy of Romulus, our BOFs would just disappear on every map when we preview the maps. And now that's fixed. At least I think it's fixed. I haven't noticed my BOFs disappearing. And I thought, well, what if the Foundry is calculating pathing now for every time you preview a map?
I had wondered that, but I can tell you from my BOFs getting stuck indoors that I don't know that it really is. Because they freeze in doorways, and that's pretty much it. Despite the fact that I don't know if anybody else has this, but I fall through my map about 200 meters before I actually load all the way into the map.
Yeah, that happens to me too.
That's happened for quite a while, I think, hasn't it?
It seems worse now. I mean, that tended to happen a lot when I used cryptic interiors in the past, but now it's just on a ground map, my character falls 200 feet in the black and then comes back up.
There are definitely some things that need attention. I mean, all over the game.
It's just, what scares me is that, okay, now the reviews are working, the major bugs that broke a lot of our missions are gone, and I'm scared that the devs might think, okay, well, the problem's fixed, the Foundry is functional, and all of us would probably agree that it's not functional at the moment, even though everything kind of does work, right? I mean, the map does load, it just takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think the one thing that would make it functional as such, at least to the point where we had it, because I think everyone will agree that it isn't as... It is still broken. It is more broken than it was before Legacy of Romulus. But the simple fact that we've got these... I originally I was getting minimum of 3-minute load times and maximum of 5 minutes. And I timed them.
I get an average of 4 minutes per preview.
So really, you're right. It's not functional at the moment because if we're taking 4 or 5 minutes to load into a map, then that's I mean, I can work that way, as in I can once I've seen all the assets down once, I can fiddle and do everything in the top-down editor for about 20 minutes and then go in and see what it looks like. But I can sort of cut down the previews that I do, which feels weird, but it's manageable. But at the same time, it's still you're wasting 5 minutes doing nothing, and you just lose the energy and the will to go in and do stuff.
If my math is correct, if you were able to put every object on a map right where you wanted to put it the first time, and just you were that much of a master builder, If
You mean
max-
Almac?
Yeah, if you're saying Almac, and you also have, some crazy mental ability to do this. If you put down every object exactly where it should be and previewed every object, and then you maxed out your map to 475 objects, it would still take you 40 hours just to preview that map.
But that's if you're putting down each object and then previewing it.
Right.
Yeah. Still, that's quite a figure.
Well, unfortunately, it does not appear to be a high priority thing, like, say, when the login server broke for the updates and they had that fixed within days.
I think there may be a back-end thing on cryptic servers in general, because they had the big issue with Neverwinter. When Neverwinter released, they had the huge login issues across all the games. I mean, I think it affected Champions as well, didn't it? 'Cause I know it certainly affected STO.
Weren't you also saying that Neverwinter had the same issue with the logins or the loading screens?
Oh yeah, I haven't been in it too recently, but for a long time it was just awful.
I just wonder how those Foundry authors are responding, because it's really their first time in the Foundry, and that's the norm that they're having to work with. So I wonder just how they're responding to that type of setup.
They don't know any better.
That's true. I don't know if it's still there, but I know it certainly was at one point. And it did come on suddenly, because back when I was using it back in, say, December, I think it was absolutely fine. But then when I came back to January, February, suddenly at one point it just went, nope. You're going to wait 5 minutes. Go make a cup of tea or something.
For all we know, they gave them the hardware to load stuff up.
True.
You guys think of any other bugs you've run into?
Any show-stopping bugs?
I just really haven't had the will to make a Foundry mission with the load times, so I'm sure there's a lot of stuff there. It's just, I just don't have the will to do it.
Saying that, though, we did get a couple of nice things. A couple, but we still got some nice things. We got Alachi groups, and there was that. It's interesting, I'm so glad, though, that the Romulan Republic and the Free Remans, or whatever they are, I'm so glad that they are friendly to each other and are enemies to the right people. And that and it seems to, although I haven't fully tested this, but it seems that if it's a Federation mission, the Romulan Republic will be friendly to the Federation, but equally so on the KDF side. If it's a KDF mission, then the Romulan Republic will be friendly to KDF. I do want to clarify that with someone at some point, but I think that I'm right in saying that, which is nice.
Yeah,
basically they're friendly to player.
If they're allied.
Yeah,
but it's the same NPC group, right? So that's weird that it would have kind of a baked-in AI dynamic that allows it to do that.
It's not bad, though.
No, it's not bad. It's good. It just surprises me that they can do that, and I wonder if that could be, expanded into other types of features. Like some of the things that we've long wanted to do is turn friendlies into enemies and vice versa. And
which we can do in Neverwinter, I believe. Yes.
So is that all we got? It's the Alachi groups, or did we get other stuff?
Oh, we got costume pieces. We got Romulan
That's true.
foreheads.
We did get Romulan foreheads.
Years.
And I know at least like the Romulan mercenary belts in there.
Oh, that's
I ran
nice.
into that last night.
Did we get any of the actual costume, as in the torso or the legs?
Oh, I wasn't looking for the costume.
Oh no, I don't think we have uniforms. No.
At that moment, I'm still looking for the TOS medical officer uniform from 2 years ago. So
actually, isn't that in? But it's just that Paygate thing.
No, it's not.
Okay.
The only stuff that's pay-gated are the actual races.
Oh, yes, so they are. I swear I had Section 31 uniforms in.
Maybe if you imported a costume.
Well, I know I had them in the...
No, it was pre-imported. Maybe I'm just thinking of a completely different character.
Yeah, not only that, I know that from importing costumes, if the piece isn't in there, it gets substituted for something else. And that's what happens when I try to... I've made my Ryzian costume on the KDF side, and I save the costume. And then I go to load it, it's replaced with other things. It's very strange what's going on there. But apparently that's not a priority. Well, it's irritating because, you had to work to get those costumes, and you can't use them. And then the event is going to go away. And
One interesting thing that I found out, because I was at the community meetup in Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago, and it's one interesting thing that I don't think we've heard anywhere else before, and I think I've told a few people in StarbaseUGC, but I was talking to Brandon about the Foundry and the Foundry team that Neverwinter has and things. Apparently, Neverwinter doesn't have a Foundry team, and apparently never has. What they do have is there's a core Cryptic team that works on the Foundry. So they have a core Foundry team. Hence why Rob Obermeyer, is it Obermeyer
Right.
or Overmeyer? Obermeyer, I think. Yeah. Why Rob Obermeyer, who's the EP of Champions, is in charge of it. And we were wondering why he was in charge of Foundry. It's because he oversees the core team. So apparently what it is, I've said apparently a lot in the last few seconds, they have been working on Foundry, on the Foundry in Neverwinter almost exclusively for the business reasons and that sort of thing. But that sort of gives us hope, I think, in that they aren't exclusively Neverwinter as we first thought, and we'd sort of been led to believe, which sort of gives us hope that, oh, actually, they may come over and do some stuff since they're core.
Well, who was it that told us that the Stowe Foundry was basically up to the
Right.
Stowe team?
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
well,
just-
that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, they're the ones who
There's so many conflicting statements and concepts of the past or things Dan Stahl told us. And it's just, I have no idea what to believe at this point. And then if it is a core team that works basically for Cryptic, I'm not sure how much hope that would give me, because obviously the Cryptic team is focused on the new thing right now. And they've been focused on that new thing for like 2 years.
But we do have to remember that STO is also the biggest moneymaker for Cryptic anyway at the moment, and probably one of the biggest one of the biggest anyway for Perfect World.
Right, but is
so
the
I don't know
Foundry
if that is true anymore, though.
and is the
with
Foundry
Neverwinter
part
coming,
of
yeah.
that? And is the Foundry part of that money making?
Well, for Star Trek Online, I don't think so. That may be different since it's a draw for Neverwinter.
Mhm.
But I mean, just looking at the stores alone, I figured it up a couple months back that there's over $1,000 worth of ships in the store. That is peanuts compared to the $60 bear mounts and all that kind of stuff over in Neverwinter.
I don't like Neverwinter's free-to-play model.
I don't know that I want to actually quantify their store, because it would probably make me sob.
There is a lot of money in their store. Just it's not pay to win as far as I know, but it is certainly get out your wallets if you want any sort of cool mount.
That store model follows I don't want to say more traditional
No, you're right. It is
Eastern
traditional.
one, but it definitely is modeled on other Perfect World games.
I think it's also a general model on free-to-play games in general. STOs has always been a bit weird because it's that sort of hybrid, which I like, but perhaps that's just because I'm a gold member and a lifetime member sort of thing. But I never thought that STO, well, there was that original lockbox and a couple of other things that have been like, oh my god, this is so expensive. But I haven't really had to complain about the prices too much in the C-store or in STO. Whilst when I look at them in Neverwinter, I'm like, eh.
So getting back to the Foundry team, I mean, Brandflix used that term, right, in a tweet and on the forums. I mean, he constantly talks about the Foundry team.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it sounds like there's not a Foundry team.
No, there is a Foundry team, and they are part of the core team, or rather, they are part of the core department, but they are a Foundry team dedicated to the Foundry.
I guess probably think of it this way, is that the Foundry team are SEAL Team members, but they're part of SEAL Team 5.
Okay, then my question would be, who on STO has anything to do with the Foundry, and what is that role?
Zero and Cryptic Frost. Those are the only
so-
two confirmed people that we know of.
So we have a Foundry producer who also has a lot of different other titles, right?
Well, she's only got the one now.
responsibilities.
Well, now she's only responsible for the programming team. She's programming producer. She doesn't do the triple notes and things like that, patch notes.
Because the last time I heard, I mean, she was adding assets into it on her off hours or staying late just to get us a few assets. It hasn't really seemed like Zero has a team of programmers who she can order to do stuff to the foundry. At least it doesn't seem like that in the past. So it sounds like we have a producer who doesn't really have many resources to use. And a guy who's a great guy, but he's essentially a QA guy who really doesn't call the shots on what gets fixed.
No, he just all he can do is log it, and
he can prioritize within his own log to some extent. I would assume to say like, well, this is the most important foundry bug at the moment, sort of thing. That I would assume that's probably the sort of job he's been given because he's the most active with the foundry community. That he can look at them, and if they need to know something, say if Dan Stahl needs to know something about, okay, which one do we need to fix first? He'd probably go to Zero and Cryptic Frost.
Yeah.
But as far as having, you're right in that I don't think Zero has any assets, not assets, what's the better word? Resources, yes, to use particularly.
I keep wondering what happened to the mystery dev. I mean, you guys remember when Stahl left and D'Angelo came on, and was it an Ask Cryptic or an interview? It was something, and he said that one of the things they're doing is hiring somebody to work on the foundry on the Stowe team. So we would get an exclusive dev devoted to the foundry. And I think months went by and we were still asking, okay, who's this dev? Have you hired this dev? Have they been trained? Are they going to communicate with us? And then months and months and months and months went by and we still heard nothing. And we never heard anything. I think to the point where I was posting threads on the forums that were like, mystery dev, do you exist? Just say hi. And we got nothing.
I remember that forum.
And then just casually, I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe over a month ago, Cryptic Frost posted in one of the bug forums that there was never anybody exclusively devoted to the foundry on the STO team. We were either, I don't know, maybe they hired somebody, maybe they shuffled that person around, or else they just made it up to placate us.
Well, they intended to do it and then just changed their minds.
Yeah.
That happens frequently.
Perhaps we can find out.
We can never pin them down to a straight answer these days because nobody wants to really commit.
Yeah.
Because we'll complain whatever we get.
But, I mean, on the flip side of that, you've had Dan Stahl saying for the last year the same thing. After Neverwinter. After Neverwinter.
And now it's after Neverwinter.
So let's see what happens come October, November. After that, that's when I'll lose my faith. Because, he has been saying the same thing. So
there's just so much that, I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, we're waiting on Neverwinter. There was just so much that just needed to be done now that isn't related to Neverwinter. And there's a lot of stuff in Neverwinter that I don't want, and I know a lot of other people don't want.
No, that's true.
Very true.
But it's just like little things. I mean...
But what if, though, the reason that we can't get it until after Neverwinter has been because the resources and the manpower have been devoted to Neverwinter, like from the Foundry team. Perhaps now, when they say after Neverwinter, really, it wasn't so much it wasn't just that they were waiting for code and stuff, that they were waiting for actual manpower.
Well, I'm sure that's some of it, though. Sure, STO's code has now evolved to the point where it's closer.
Oh, I certainly think we're very close to it. However, I do know that they, I don't know if you've been following it, but they've got, their Neverwinter are calling them modules. They're essentially the same as our seasons. Module 1 is a massive Foundry update. Like, they're talking about bringing in a 3D editor, which may or may not happen, but it's on there for Module 1. And if they have a full Foundry team behind them, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I don't know if I want it, but
yeah, true. I mean, that's
yeah. I'm kind of scared every time they start to talk about some of these things because really we had one great patch to the Foundry after the Foundry was released, right? And it was the one that added branching dialogue and triggers and all these things. And it happened during a period of time where there was a Foundry team working on Stowe's Foundry. right? And it was a time, I remember this time fondly because it had conference calls and they were listening to us and asking us what we wanted, and little requests would make it in. And I think of that as sort of the last big update to the Foundry and everything that happened afterwards. When we got different stuff, we got patrols, which were buggy as hell. We got other things which were buggy as hell. We got different NPC options that either do or don't work, and also multi-select, which I've just given up on using multi-select because of what it does with the Y values of things. And I as much as I want the Foundry to be updated, I'm kind of scared because it really is less functional now as a whole, I think, than it was when they gave us that first big patch.
Yeah, I'm dying to get those green outlines back.
Yeah, God.
I miss those so much.
And see, that's an example of an improvement. I mean, the heart was in the right place, right? Of giving us icons that look like the stuff we're using.
And a lot of people were asking for it. I remember
that's
that.
True.
But
and you can't blame them for it.
No. It's a good idea in theory, but it's just so many of them aren't.
Well, it would have been better if it hadn't been that they also changed the geometry of the objects so that now the values don't match up to the values that are stated.
Right. Yeah. And so, the object dimensions don't match the coordinates. I don't think they've matched since really around that first big update.
Was it that update or was it season 4?
I don't remember when the feet changed to meters. Maybe it was season 4. Or
when
meters
everything went wrong.
Feet.
We don't talk about season 4.
Wait, didn't they change from feet to meters?
Probably.
Yeah. I increased something by 2 units the other day, and it went taller than my character, and I'm fairly confident they're not 2 feet tall.
And I'll tell you, I can understand them wanting to improve it to the point where they bring in a 3D editor, but there's also the fact that and it seems like it'll be more complicated for people. Yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who barely understand it now.
And I think it at the moment it's like drag and drop. Literally, it is drag and drop. And that's appealing to a lot of people. That bring people into it. And they're like, oh, I can place this down here and I can place this down here. Oh my god, that's fantastic. Whilst if we have a 3D editor, like I'm sure you're all sort of at least semi-familiar with, if you click on something in 3D space, it'll bring up the 3 arrows. So you have a red one, you have a blue one, a green one, that sort
like
of thing.
A blender or
exactly, yeah. And then you have rotation, but you have rotation 3 different axes as well as transforming it in 3 different axes.
Yeah, then our X, Y, and Z have to change values because they're not right.
And now I have to pay $600 to Cryptic for its Photoshop version.
Well, but the thing is, you're remembering, it's actually the cloud version, so it's like $6 a month.
And personally, I would be happy if it was just an old-fashioned map-making type of interface where you could toggle between the top-down view and a side view or a front view. I don't need something that's me manipulating objects in a 3D environment. It's just I put a glass on the table and I want to toggle and see how far that glass is from the top of the table. And I would be perfectly happy with that. As it is now, it's like to put a glass on a table, I have to go in and out of the Foundry 6 or 7 times to tweak the Y value.
Instead of a 3D editor, I'd rather have the ability to knock that glass over or to pitch it on an angle, or
even have the maps. Even have the maps not be blurry, right? The
have a high fidelity map rather than the mini map currently. Type thing, yeah.
Right now we have the ability to use FreeCam and basically look down on that map inside the Foundry. I don't understand why the picture is all blurry and we can't tell where the consoles are or where the captain's chair is. It just seems like little improvements like that would make a world of difference.
Yeah, sure would.
I think the reason the map is so blurry is because it's literally the mini map just blown up. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's why. Because some maps aren't blurry at all. Some of them like crystal clear. I think it's a couple of the interior maps, but
it's pretty much the legacy ones, which would be the bridge ones that came in at the beginning.
Ship interiors that aren't damaged would be a plus, but now we can go into a list of things that we.
I think there's a whole other topic there if we want to go into it. It's the whole sort of what do we want and what do we want immediately to be fixed, and also what features are a priority that we want from Neverwinter, and what ones do we not want at all.
And from Neverwinter, not just features in general.
Yes, from Neverwinter. I don't want to particularly talk about that topic at the moment. We can perhaps do it another episode or something, because that will take a whole chunk of time.
Yes.
But the one thing that I particularly want is essentially I've talked about it a little bit before, is picking up an item and then in a dialogue or in an objective, checking to see if they have a specific item, and if they do, then a certain thing then something triggers. Essentially, what I see happening is we can then tell truly branching stories without having to do some weird jiggery pokery code thing that the player doesn't know they're doing, but
right.
To tell a branching story. That way they pick up an item from a choice that goes into their inventory on the first map, and then it can be checked on the second, the third, the fourth, whatever, in the first dialogue, and then it takes them down a specific path.
Right.
And then you can pick up more items and then diverge even more. I think that is a fantastic feature that
would change everything.
It really would. And since Neverwinter doesn't have pop-up dialogues, they can't do it to huge amounts, to huge degrees. But I just see the potential in that, and STO is just, oh my god, incredible.
And would the object literally go in their inventory?
Yeah.
I think, well, it could, but it could also just go into like a specific quest inventory as well.
Okay, I'm just thinking in terms of exploit, because if you put anything down there, the first missions you're going to see are come pick up 1 million hypos and sell them.
Oh no, they're not actual real items.
Okay.
They're specific to missions that they're not even real items. Like in Neverwinter at the moment, they are essentially you create they're keys. Like
I see.
You'll get an icon of a key or an icon of a sword or something like that, and you can name it and you can write in like a description of it and that sort of stuff.
Right, be like a chip you could use to open doors.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
And the easy thing is you can just designate that at the end of the mission it gets junked.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as they leave it, they lose it. Yeah.
Sure.
But anyway, that's a whole other topic. Is there anything else on bugs that people particularly want to talk about?
I have. I think it's a bug, and it's the general nature of the search for Foundry missions. Right now, in the top-rated category and in the hot category, the Foundry displays exactly 50 missions. So it doesn't give you a way to browse further. And so I did a search, and for example, CaptPDennis, the only way to find a mission by CaptPDennis is to know I want to play a mission by CaptPDennis and to search his name, except for his spotlight. You have a spotlight, right, Paul, on the KDF side?
Yep.
Otherwise, you can't find his mission, and he's not alone. I have 9 missions. Only one can be found without a custom search because it's a spotlight. I'm also looking through the lists, and I can't find Alamac. I can't find Admiral Murphy. There's a lot of people that used to be very high in the top rated, and now they're nowhere to be found. But instead, and I made a list here, what can be found out of the top 50, and the only 50 that are listed, are the following. Battleship Royal Rumble. Admiral Bobo goes to war. Fed Farming 102 ACD. Admiral Bobo goes to war easy. Battle Group Chaos Rumble. Lootomatic 3000. Farm 101 ACD, Quirk the Farmer, Farm 101 ESD, Grizz's Farmer, Happy Farmer, Doff Grinder, Klingons Be Gone, EC Farming ESD, The Grinder Doom the Dominion, Battleship 101, Captain's Table Royal Rumble, Farm 101 DS9, Energy Credits, One and Done, Fed Battleship Bashing, The Grinder Orion Grinderon, Undine Ground Accolade, Boff Grinder New Romulus Rumble, and last, Target Practice at Range 101. So we have this limited list of 50 top-rated missions, over half of which are farming and grinders.
And the new search feature was designed to get rid of them.
Right. It's just, it seems fundamentally broken. It's also a disservice to...
Just to bust in quick, I don't think it's actually the formula that's broken. I think I don't actually see a way short of getting rid of those missions that would fix it unless we brought in like categories.
I think we should tell them to get rid of the damn static field that drops players' ships. I mean, I know some of us have used that for our missions and we've used it as it's designed, but if you got rid of that one FX, I think the list would look very different, because so many of these missions, they are those missions where a player builds a fence and the enemies are on one side of the static field and the player's on the other. And some of them turn the ships around. So they're essentially shooting fish in a barrel, and all of it surrounds that static field.
Right. Either that or
when
keep
did
the
Mirror
effect,
Kirkfat arrive?
but just not drop the shields.
Or make it a map-wide effect, right? I mean, there are map-wide effects in the Foundry, and if you want to use that static field and drop the shields, well, it's going to affect the player's ship if it's a map-wide effects.
Right.
I would be against making it a map-wide effect, because then you couldn't do going into a nebula.
I think
Like,
they should be separate.
Have pockets of micronebulas.
Well, you can if you toggle it on and off in the
using
background.
triggers,
Yeah,
right?
the
But then
interference.
you'd have really weird things.
But if
going
the
on.
interference was separate from the shield dropping, say they were two separate effects that you could stack, rather than to be built into one.
Mhm.
That way you could at least have the distortion effect for the visual without any physical effect. And then if you
I would
wanted,
hate... Sorry.
I was just saying, if you wanted to have that nebula thing with the shields drop, you could add that to it. But it should be separate.
I would hate to lose Nebula Effect, partly for sentimental reasons, because it was in my first mission, but partly just because it's one of the few environmental effects that actually affect the player that we have, which is a good and a bad thing. But I think it's a wonderful thing that we can do. But I do understand your point in that if that really is what a lot of those missions are made up of, and it's how they work so easily and how they make them worth their time. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
absolutely.
catch-22.
It drops the enemy ship shields and you just blast them all to hell. I mean,
Just imagine a new player exploring the Foundry for the first time, and when you open those lists, it's grinders, more grinders, and maybe 20 stories. And I think
So it's Neverwinter, basically.
if that's what Neverwinter is like, I mean, to me, having only 50 show makes it seem like there's not a lot of Foundry content out there.
Mhm.
And also having the custom search it's kind of hidden, right? The ability to custom search for an author takes a few clicks, and then you don't need to know the author's name. You need to know if you're at the right level, etc. It's becoming harder and harder and harder to even get plays, because it seems like everything is against us. The search engine's against us. The listings are against us. I mean, we basically have to have a spotlight and hope that the player who likes our spotlight will search our name. Otherwise, nobody's going to play a mission if they don't know it exists.
it's unfortunate that there's no way to accept those exploits from being rated at all.
Yeah.
You know, if they weren't even included
Thing
in
is,
the
though,
ratings.
some of them aren't exploits, and that's the issue.
Yeah, and I
Is
think
that-
there are legitimate grinders. I'm not trying to say that
Yeah.
all these are exploits, but some of them clearly take advantage of everything they can. But when you add it all up, when you take what's in the hot list, what's in the top rated, and what's in the new, and I tried to count. There are less than 30 authors who have made story missions that are seeing those story missions show up in the lists. So, I mean, there might be 2 or 3 parts of the Allegiance series, so that author gets some plays. But less than 30 people who are making Foundry missions are seeing players have the ability to find those missions and play their missions.
Well,
And there's really only so much we can do outside of the game, right? I mean, we could spam the forums with banners, we can post it, StarbaseUGC, we can make trailers, we can do all this stuff. But when it comes down to it, when a player in the game wants to play a Foundry mission, they should be able to open up those tabs and find story missions. More
Straight
than
off
20,
the bat. Yeah.
right?
Which part of that sort of comes back to the whole tag thing, which has been talked about a lot and has been since sort of the conception of the the conception of the Foundry, is that if you could tag this is a story mission,
right.
or tag this is a grind or a grind.
Doesn't that also...
Farming missions, I think, are wrong. I think farming missions should be classed as exploits kind of, because you're going in simply for the loot, you're going in simply so you can get quick ECs or whatever.
Yeah.
Whilst grinder missions, like I seem to remember one of the devs talking about it, it's like the getting certain accolades, which are nearly impossible without them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the Undine accolade, killing all the Undine. It was very difficult to kill like 500 Undine or 1,000, whatever it was, to get that accolade. So those grinder missions, I think, have a legitimate cause. But if they're farming missions that are there just for the loot, I think that is wrong.
Well, the only way to eliminate it is to do something we'll never see, and that's to have a human being actually police the foundry.
Yeah. I'm a poor student that's looking for work.
Yeah, they don't.
I will sit at a computer screen all day and go through foundry missions.
Well, in the end, what it comes down to is, one, it has to, first off, a definition needs to come up of what the foundry is intended for, and I kind of lean towards the point of it's not up to a small group of people to determine what fun other people are allowed to have.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently enough people find some level of enjoyment in taking Admiral Bobo to war.
Oh, I
But
don't
I think
know.
they're-
I mean, it's so gripping as a story. It's a thrilling drama.
And I think a lot of us would agree with that, but it's one thing for the missions to exist, but it's another thing for their existence to make it where ours don't.
It's debilitating to
Right.
the other.
Well, and it also comes down to another point, too, of where does the MMO stop and the Star Trek Online start? Because all of these mechanics that you see are stock MMO fare. All MMOs are dedicated towards the acquisition of things and being top of the pile and all that, whereas that's not really a core precept of Star Trek.
Mhm.
So that's in itself already a dichotomy you have to deal with.
I have to be honest, sometimes I feel like I'm writing missions for an entirely different video game.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a complaint since day one. There was always more emphasis on the
I think it was
pew-pew
day two.
than any, exploration or diplomatic missions. People have been complaining since it went online.
Mm-hmm.
But, they have made attempts to make that situation better, but it still comes down to blowing things up.
Well,
I
and
think that
you
was
have
their
to-
intention. Sorry.
You have to appeal to the 18-year-old college student who's grown up on Madden and Halo and stuff versus the 30, 40, 50-year-old who grew up on Pong.
Or Star Trek.
Hang on. You missed a demographic there. You've also missed the 18-year-olds that grew up on Star Trek. And,
Well,
I'm right
yes,
here.
I would argue.
but that's a small demographic, barely a blip
But I'm
on
not
the
saying
radar.
it should be one versus the
It's
other,
true.
but more both.
No, I think looking back at some of the interviews that Dan Starr and things did way back when they were talking about the Foundry, it was really their way of getting more story into the game. And I think that was always their intention, was that the Foundry is story. That is the thing for, the main thing anyway, for people who want Star Trek stories and everything to go and play or to go and take part in.
That seems to be the argument for most of the people that make these
Yeah.
grinders and the exploits, is that it's here, I can use it for whatever I want.
Yeah. I suppose really that comes down to is the put in some sort of separation between the two.
Right? Well,
Don't completely shut them off from each other or anything like that, but put some distinguishing features in there that you can go in and you can play story without having to search for them. You just go in. I mean, arguably that's what the Spotlight is, but at the same time, that's only a new mission every
right.
week or
You'd
so.
have to spotlight every story that comes out.
Hey, I wouldn't be averse to that.
No. But again, that's work for them, and
Yeah.
that's something they don't want to do. They want to lessen their expenditure, not increase it.
hmm
Well, in the end, it won't come down to us to fix the way missions show up in the journal and stuff. It's going to have to be by a committee who looks at it, studies it, and proposes a lasting change, be it tags, be it an analysis of trends inside of missions and categorizing internally, or random lottery drawn by a Ferengi.
I just almost want them just to revert to the way it was a year and a half ago, right? Before we had the rating system set, or when the rating system was set to a default 3-star. Because even when we had all those clickers, right? When I clicked on the top rated back in the day, it was still a list of who's who. I mean, there were a few exceptions probably, but I mean, the list, and it also included like 100 missions or so, had all those names that we grew to know and like. And now it's all that's gone, and it's all those little changes that made things worse.
Mm-hmm. Ah, the good old days is basically what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but remember those good old days were phones that were wired to walls and other sort of things that we don't want to relive too. So season 4 was in the good old days.
Yeah.
So take the good, take the bad.
Ah, season 4. I remember that like a wet fish slap to the face.
Yes.
They have improved though. We'll see. There is still hope in some of us anyway. Shall we move on to?
Yes.
We'll leave we'll leave our comedy one to the very end. Our light comedy till the end. But I think I certainly like the idea of this. I think it's a very interesting topic. And it's cast. What was it? Would you want to talk about with Canonic?
Should a player focus on canon in their mission, or should it be freeform?
What do you mean by free form?
Well,
Like when I made the Tellarites drop out of the Federation, you mean?
that could be an example, even though the Andorians have totally done it in the books.
Well, the books aren't canon necessarily.
Well, neither is Star Trek Online for the most part, and neither is the Foundry for the definite part. So it kind of comes down to at what point what should be the general feeling of a Foundry author coming in? Should they adhere by the book, where hours seem like days, or is it all right to have a bunch of Tellarites who actually hate arguing?
Well, I don't know. I don't think there's any set rule. There never was. I know that I like to, as an author, touchstone on canon when I can. You know, usually players enjoy it when you're able to tie your story into something that they're familiar with. But I don't think everything necessarily has to conform.
Yeah, I agree. I like, I certainly like referencing canon. I like messing with canon as well. Like doing what ifs, what if this happened, etc., etc.
And all of Star Trek V was a dream.
Cast, you know this, everything is a dream, okay? Everything. And that will become clear to the audience if people are actually listening to this in about 3 months' time. Anyway.
Oh, our dream audience.
Our dream audience, yes. Yep. Our dream audience, yes. Hello from the mortal plane. I'm trying to think of a decent Shakespeare reference, but my brain is failing me. I like the idea of touchstoning on canon and playing about with it, but I think it really does come down to personal choice of the author.
Mm-hmm.
And to the player as well, to some extent, in that they will play certain types of missions. I like when things stick to canon-ish, or reference canon but then expand on canon. I don't usually like it when people go against canon, but sometimes that's been done to great effect. So, really, I think it does come down to personal preference.
Which sounds like a great opportunity for Kirkfat to speak up, because we could talk about Terra Nova and returning to it.
Yeah, I tend to latch on to key episodes because it helps ground me in the kind of story I'm telling. Plus, I think what's really cool about being Foundry authors is we're set in 2409, right? So every place that we've seen in Star Trek can be revisited. And so I've tried to do that at least in a number of ways. It kills me that we don't have better TOS assets or other things. Like one of my dream episodes that I'd love to write is a sequel to The Return of the Archons. But I just have nothing that I could use as sets, except for those colony buildings. And so there are lots of opportunities or lost opportunities. But I always try to tie in what I'm doing with something that's been seen.
And like Serp said too about the what ifs. Like you latch on to something in the episodes that we know and that was never really explained, and then ask what if. Like just for example, in the Pale Moonlight from DS9. What happens because Ben Sisko allows some guy to purchase.
Oh, I thought you were going to reference all my missions there. Damn.
Now, I was just going to say, that's how some inspiration comes in to start your mission in the first place, is to say, well, what happened there as a result of that decision that we never saw on screen, that they never really touched on again? It's a small detail, but yet it could inspire an entire story.
I mean, it's a fantastic... I think that's what the Foundry, at least to me, that's what the Foundry is. It's some people have come out with some fantastic standalone stories within the Star Trek universe, which may reference certain things, but they're not built from things. Whilst I think the best missions and the best ideas behind them anyway, and again, complete personal preference, is where someone takes something that either wasn't explained fully or was sort of left open or was just like a throwaway thing, and then you can build from that, even if it was just like one single line. And there's plenty of stuff in DS9 and TNG and a couple of other things. It's like, wow, you could make a whole other thing. I think the first thing that comes to mind is actually an Enterprise. I think it's the first episode. Mayweather is upside down and talking about going to Draylon,
the sweet
and
spot.
things like that. Well, the sweet spot, yes, or things like we're talking about going to to Draylons in Three-Breasted Wind, that sort of thing. I think just those throwaway lines, you can create a whole mission, a whole story,
entire culture.
Exactly. You can create whatever you want within the Star Trek universe, and then it becomes personal canon. And if someone else chooses to believe that and to take that and integrate it with their own sense of what is personal canon, that's fantastic. Yeah.
I just really wish we had the equivalent of a NBC or a Paramount set in telling those stories, because Star Trek, especially the original Star Trek, I mean, that's what they used. They didn't really have very many futuristic sets, but they had, Old West towns, and they had the gangster furniture, and they had, God,
so basically, you want a back lot.
Yeah, I want a back lot. And if I had a back
build
lot,
Paramount Studios.
if I had a Foundry equivalent to a back lot, I would tell everything from Beowulf, medieval tales to, I mean, they could give us that stuff at least from Neverwinter, right? I mean,
yeah.
There have been so many Star Trek episodes.
And some of the modern era stuff from Champions. And
you know what? That's not actually a bad idea, is a backlot. Actually,
with green screens.
Backlot. Oh, God. No, we don't want green screens in the backlot. We just want green screen assets. Please. Yeah,
if there's a dev, all we're asking for here is a wall colored a certain solid color.
Yeah.
Green, bright green,
a wall and a
green or chroma key blue. Either of those colors, and we will send you cookies. I seriously mean it. We will send whatever type and flavor of cookies or pie or both that you so desire.
Butterscotch, snickerdoodles? Whatever
the hell that thing is, yes.
Earl Grey shortbreads.
I will make Earl Grey shortbread myself and send it to you.
And they might even still be good.
They might be. You never know. I'll send it like first class airmail,
Oh, so it only takes 2 weeks.
Yeah, it'll get stopped at customs because the dogs will smell it and they'll go, "Ooh, what is this strange spelling
because
thing?"
the Royal Mail Service will go on strike then.
Hey, they aren't that bad. They're not too bad these days. Anyway, I think the idea of giving us a backlot is fantastic. I don't know, maybe that's the filmmaker in me, but I think if we had a load of just streets, just a western street, a modern city street, all that sort of stuff.
Like
and alien Nazis.
City.
Perhaps it would be something that would be really cool. To me, anyway, is machinima ideas. Is that you could then just go to town.
Oh, you'd have a field day.
Oh, it'll be fantastic. And all you need is the one map and have everything on, like from the craziest 1950s, 1920s sci-fi spaceship sets.
Yeah,
I would love those.
Captain Proton.
I would love to make Captain Proton missions.
Give us that ability. Give us
monochrome.
A holodeck. Really give us the ability to create a proper holodeck And
So
we will be
basically,
so
what you
happy.
really want is like a new Romulus-sized map with just like maybe 10 by
Bit of
10
everything.
sections.
Yeah, just give us a bit of everything.
Drop a skyscraper down.
I mean, I'm sure this would be a bit crazy, and actually, to be honest, it would take a lot of work, in theory.
Yeah.
Although, tell you what, fly one of us out there, and we will sit and we will use Cryptic's tools and just import everything from all the other games and just place it in and create them ourselves. Just do that, and we'll be happy.
If we
We'll
just had
give you 3 months of silence.
You do
If we just
realize
had
we're going to
one
have
dev.
to create a drinking game for every time you offer to take a job position.
Yeah, that's fine. I am looking for jobs. I am a poor student who is going to university this year, so you know.
And that's a drink right there.
seriously, if we just had one dev, every Friday we got something. You know, whether it was a pool table or a car or a floor.
We have a car. We have a car.
Yeah.
It's not a car,
It's
it's
We
a
can't
toy car.
resize that car, which would be nice.
They just shrunk it, okay? It was a shrink ray. There was a horrible accident. We squished some people. It's fine.
Yes, Scotty Transporter. Anyways, it would be, and honestly, I don't need one every week. Just like once every 2 patches, like, oh, look, new item.
I think we would get a bit annoyed if they were just giving us one new item. Although I think it may have been Kirkfat that talked about it a while. It was quite a long time ago. About if they were to give us a new item and like a specific set piece or something like that, a talking point, that would then become a talking point of a foundry a foundry
The challenge?
the challenge. Sorry, yes, the foundry challenge. That would become part of the brief. Is that it's based on this, and then you can go from there.
I like it. I do think that a lot of what we need is stuff that is, at least in my mind, shouldn't take Cryptic a long time to make. It's stuff like texturing those building block platforms as floors. Right? I mean, they have a library of textures, and we've been asking them to apply a texture to a flat block and add that into the foundry.
I mean, they've done that. They did that in. Mapolis went away and did it in a day, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean,
On
I've
Neverwinter,
dabbled.
which was fantastic.
Right. I mean, I've dabbled in some of this stuff, and I know it can't be. I mean, I'm not sure how long it takes to add the thing into the foundry, but we need ceilings and we need floors, and they have ceiling and floor textures already made in their library. We have objects that they could apply those textures to already in the foundry. It can't be a lot of work, right?
I think they would have to. I've been looking into texturing myself recently and things because of what I'm heading off to do, and I could see there could be a number of issues in that. Sure, the basic idea is there.
Yeah, and
so
I'm
they
thinking
may
here
have
in terms of like seamless textures. So they're textures that it doesn't matter
seamless
what
textures.
shape the block is. It all looks the same.
I mean, that sort of stuff is if it's like a seamless, flat sort of texture type thing. I mean, it's not like flat itself, but if it's just a texture that has no particular edges and they don't have to really mess about with to make it fit an object, if they could just drop it on, boom, it works. Sure. But I do know things like the floors in ESD and stuff like that. I'm fairly certain that they won't be. I think just because it saves processor time, saves graphics power and everything, if they make it all one big texture sort of thing.
Right.
A lot of the time, this is a common thing in games, they'll have a sort of a texture palette, not palette, it's like say you have one PNG file, a transparent PNG file that has multiple parts to it, and they texture the floor. The texture of the floor is like, say, the bottom left-hand corner, whilst the texture of the roof is the top right-hand corner, something like that. Then it selects from a certain part of that. I mean, it's all possible, and it is nice if there are textures there that aren't tied to other things, that are just literally drag and drop sort of stuff, then it would be lovely to have them put in, and like you said, it wouldn't take too long to do.
But
Yay, green
again,
screens.
we want everything, right?
Indeed. We have to
Keyword is
really
more,
decide,
more.
do we want assets, or do we want bug fixes, or do we want new features? And then within those, what do we want fixed? What do we want added? What do we want changed? All that sort of stuff. It all just becomes one mammoth task.
Well, I mean, you have to prioritize, and I would say bug fix first, and then features and assets.
Mm.
But not too many features. There really aren't that many.
No, it's. I mean, we'll probably talk. I'd love to dedicate a large portion of this to another show,
Right.
where we talk about what features. I mean, we can go away and research it, and then look at, say, what Neverwinter has and what we currently have, and then come back and say we would really like this, but we don't need this, this, and this, but we need this, this, and this sort of thing. That'd be lovely to go and do. Yeah,
we'll save
anyway.
that for 2 weeks from now.
Does anyone else have anything to say about Canonicalis something? Canon in the foundry.
Canonicalness.
Yes, that's a word.
Canonism.
If not, that's too close to cannibalism. In that case, then, shall we move on to our final light topic of the day?
Let's do.
Casting roles by Castmodean.
Yay, my casting couch.
Oh dear God, I did not need that image in my head.
So, how badly do you want to figure out this role?
Should we explain this a little bit first? What this actually is?
Okay, basically, a project that came up recently, it was deemed a nifty thing if we could image what the individual characters would actually play. Now, I know that some Star Trek authors, such as Dayton Ward and his cadre that worked on Vanguard, for their Bible, they did the same thing. They laid out this list of characters that were going to appear in the books, and then they turned around and went, okay, well, who do we want to play these characters on the big screen?
Mm-hmm.
Or the small screen, or any screen. And they
Your
listed
laptop
it
screen.
out.
Yes, it's basically so that everybody involved can hear that same voice when they're
And
thinking
see
of the
that
character.
same person and their personality and how they react.
Right, and as an
Okay.
example, with Vanguard, Clark Terrell is in there. So, of course, Clark Terrell is played by the actor who portrayed him in Star Trek II.
Mhm.
So the basic idea is we're going to start simple with regular old Star Trek Online characters, such as Admiral Jor-El Quinn. Paul,
Mhm.
who do you think Quinn is?
Well, I have to think about that for a second. I would have cast, had he still been alive, Paul Newman.
See, I myself go a completely different direction. I go to a slightly younger Wilford Brimley.
Really?
Because, well, Quinn comes off as kind of the grandfathery, possible CNC of the Starfleet. It's not exactly listed where he is in the command structure other than commander of Earth Space Dock and leader of the flotilla that
He's the
took on
big
the
wig.
Borg
He's
at
the
Vega.
big cheese.
Yeah, I'm having a problem with this because I can't think of what his personality is. Does he have a personality, or is he anything but a quest giver?
Yeah, see, I was going on
Well-
a look alone.
We know he's, I think the only real personality we've got from him is from what was it, was it season 7 trailer? No, it was the free-to-play trailer, I think. That was him, that was his voiceover, he's New Zealand. That New Zealand guy, that was supposed to be Quinn, as far as I know anyway, wasn't it?
Well, I think so, because like I said, the impression is that he's also the leader of the fleet that engaged the Borg at Vega.
Yes, and in that cutscene, he did indeed engage the Borg. Yeah. I really don't know who I'd cast as him. My first reaction, I have no idea why it's this, is Hugh Jackman. But I don't quite know how, or,
A little
no,
young.
that wouldn't work. But no. I would say Hugh Jackman as my first reaction, but I'm sure I could go away and think about that a bit more and come up with someone better.
I was thinking age-wise. That's why I picked Newman. He seems to have that, towards the end of his life anyway.
I'll pick Clint Eastwood just because.
There
I
you
like
go. No, that's a good choice.
And now we have to add an empty chair to his office. Sorry, that was a political joke.
It took me a few seconds to get it. Okay, I'll recant Clint Eastwood.
No, it's not a bad choice, though. See, that's the age I'm thinking.
I mean, we can make people look old these days.
That's true.
Do you know what? Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, let's just go with the complete opposite casting.
Or Samuel L. Jackson. I would love to see Samuel L. Jackson voicing Quinn. Snakes in the Plane style.
Yeah.
Is there another character you want to bring in?
Well, there's, of course, everybody's favorite Vulcan, Admiral Tenay.
Oh. Can I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Oh, bugger, why is her name going from my head? Woman who played Lara Croft and Mr. and Mrs.
Oh,
Smith.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
her name?
Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie. Sorry, yes.
Why
don't
did
know
I
why.
somehow know that was exactly where you were going to go?
Yeah, I was
She
thinking
has
that
the
too.
jawline. She has the jawline.
And she can be tough.
Exactly. She could be the perfect Tenay, I think. I mean, changing
Yeah, I'd have to
colour and all that.
agree
But
there.
I'll agree with that too. Just because I can't pick anybody else.
what about you, Cast?
Well, I, of course, will dissent. And just for whatever reason, I see more of a Julianne Moore.
Okay. That works.
I'm going to have to Google this one.
That works.
Julianne Moore, who's... Oh, right. That could work, but I'd still see Angelina Jolie being a bit...
Yes.
Although, actually, no, Julianne Moore looks old. Well, she is old, but she probably has the more mature aspect on it. I suppose Angelina Jolie in a few years.
Yeah, I don't know that there's that much of a difference in age. between
I know,
the two.
it's just she seems more mature. Julianne Moore, anyway.
And, well, let's see. Who else is there out there?
We should make this a regular feature.
Yeah, why don't we do one a week?
Or 2 or 3 a week, something like that. 2 a week.
Let's go with 2, because then I don't have to actually remember the name of the character I'm trying to remember.
Right, we can think about it a little beforehand, because when you think about it, there are just so many. I mean, I had that problem with that project, where there was just so many people to consider. That it took a while.
Perhaps we could also flip it around at some point and just throw out an actor, a fairly well-known actor, so it's not some obscure person from
Oh,
when I was born.
so I say Christopher Walken, and now you have to name the Star Trek character?
Yes, exactly. The Star Trek Online character.
Exactly.
I think that would be a really cool idea. If we could try that as well.
Christopher Walken as Jor-El Quinn, which means you now have to read every single line that Quinn says in a Christopher Walken voice.
Do you know what? That would work. He has the high forehead as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that could work.
Wow.
I'm trying to hear it right now. It's just...
Well, it's either that or Malcolm McDowell, but he's already been once.
Yes, he's...
Not that the precedent hasn't been set by, I was about to say Cromwell.
Oh, yeah, James Cromwell. Well, there's...
I was going to say Oliver Cromwell, but that's the wrong guy in
That's the
history.
wrong guy entirely.
There's also Kurtwood Smith, you can always
Wait,
associate with Star Trek.
Or that guy who likes to dress up as an Andorian. I forget his name. He's a nobody actor.
You're not talking about Jeffrey Combs, are you?
Please don't hate me, Mr. Combs.
He's one of my favorites.
He's like one of the best actors
Yeah.
that ever has been on Star Trek.
And I saw him do Poe live at the convention, and it was fantastic.
See, when you said
Fantastic.
Poe, I didn't think Edgar Allan Poe first thing. I thought Teletubbies.
Oh,
I'm sorry. That's a 90s child.
yeah,
in me.
that's not a reference I'd get. I know what they are. I don't think I've ever seen them.
I think they were banned in the US at some point.
No,
Oh, they
no.
were banned.
They and Barney were segregated to the hours where most adults are at work
Mhm.
and safely quarantined from their darkness.
Fair enough. I feel like I should have been quarantined from the darkness at the same age, but
Yeah.
Anywho, it seems like Kirkfat is hungry.
Yes.
I'm tired because it's quite late, and I'm sure Paul is dying for his coffee, and Cast is just Cast.
Do we have a mailbag, or
yeah,
in
we can.
case somebody wants to email us, or
Mailbag at PrimetimeUGC.com.
okay,
or tweet us at primetime_UGC?
Yeah, it's correct.
Yes, I got it right. Or tweet us individually. I am at Cerberus Films.
At PFDennis.
at Kirkfat.
At Castmodean, or, of course, you can reach all of us through at StarbaseUGC.
And all these links will be in the description below because, I'm going to remember to do that. Yeah. And I think this was quite good. I feel happy about this. How do you guys feel?
Oh, great. I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Hooray, I'm not fired.
Yeah, this is fun.
Awesome sauce. So this has been, insert name here. Tune in next week and we'll be back to regular viewing of PrimetimeUGC. If the editor is working well enough, we might power through and get something out. If Paul has the time, we'll get something out of some shape or variety. So thank you very much, guys. This has been DrivetimeUGC. I've been Cerberus Films.
And Captain PF
And Castmodean.
And Kirkfat.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.